I am time, before your oceans formed, before your mountains rose, before your first ancestor looked toward the stars. I was already watching. I have witnessed worlds ignite with life and disappear without leaving even a whisper behind. Today, I will tell you about one of those worlds.
His name is Jack. He is not a soldier, nor a king, nor the greatest scientist humanity has ever known. He is simply curious, and curiosity has always carried civilizations farther than fear ever could. Far beyond the edge of explored space, Jack discovered a forgotten planet orbiting a quiet yellow star. Ancient records gave it only one surviving name, Asterion. From orbit it appeared lifeless. Vast continents stretched beneath broken clouds, while enormous circular structures reflected faint sunlight across empty deserts. Whatever had once lived here had vanished ages ago. As Jack descended toward the surface, strange geometric patterns emerged beneath layers of dust. Entire cities were visible from the sky. They were perfectly arranged, connected by enormous channels that crossed mountains, oceans, and forests with impossible precision. Nothing looked damaged by war. Nothing looked destroyed by disaster. Instead, the entire world looked as though someone had simply walked away. The landing engine settled beside a structure larger than any human city block. Towering pillars reached toward the sky, each carved from materials that had survived millions of years without crumbling. Jack stepped outside. The air was silent. No wind, no birds, no movement. Only the sound of his own footsteps echoed through streets that had once welcomed billions.
I have watched many civilizations disappear. Most leave behind ruins. Some leave behind legends. Asterion left behind questions. At the center of the city stood a vessel unlike anything humanity had ever built.
Half buried beneath stone and sand, it seemed less like a spacecraft and more like a monument waiting patiently for someone to return. Jack approached carefully. The moment his hand touched the hull, light spread beneath the ancient metal like veins awakening after an endless sleep. The ship recognized him. Doors that had remained sealed for countless ages slowly opened. Inside, darkness gave way to soft blue light. Machines awakened one after another. Displays flickered to life. Invisible systems began speaking to one another across the silent corridors. It was as though the ship had never stopped waiting. Jack walked deeper inside. Every room appeared untouched. No signs of panic, no emergency, no struggle, only perfect order frozen in time. Then, he entered the central archive. Thousands of floating crystals illuminated the chamber. Each contained memories recorded by beings that no longer existed. As Jack reached toward the nearest crystal, the room transformed around him. Entire continents appeared as glowing holograms. Rivers of light crossed oceans. Energy flowed through mountains. Cities pulsed together like living organs inside a single planetary body. Jack stared in silence. He was not looking at roads. He was looking at power. Every city, every ocean, every mountain, every storm, every sunrise. Everything was connected.
I have seen worlds where energy divided nations. I have seen worlds destroyed fighting over fuel. Asterion had chosen another path. Long before humanity dreamed of traveling between stars, these people had asked a simple question.
Why should a civilization fight over energy when an entire star gives it away every second? That question changed everything. At first, they learned to capture sunlight more efficiently. Then they mastered their winds. Their oceans became endless generators. Volcanoes warmed their cities. Lightning itself became another source of power. Generation after generation improved what came before, until almost nothing reaching their planet was wasted. Their civilization no longer depended upon a handful of power plants. Their entire world became the power plant. Scientists on Earth have imagined civilizations like this for decades. They call the first great milestone a Kardashev Type One civilization. It does not mean infinite power. It does not mean magic. It means something far more remarkable. A civilization capable of harnessing nearly all the useful energy naturally available on its home planet. Humanity has not reached that point. Not yet. Even today, enormous amounts of sunlight strike Earth every second, only to reflect harmlessly back into space. Winds cross our oceans carrying enough energy to power continents. Heat rises constantly beneath our feet. Storms release astonishing amounts of electrical energy. The resources exist. Our challenge has never been the planet. It has always been ourselves. Jack continued exploring the archive. The deeper he traveled, the more incredible the records became. Gigantic orbital mirrors redirected sunlight toward regions experiencing long winters. Floating cities generated power from waves without disturbing marine life. Atmospheric stations predicted storms years before they formed and harvested their energy instead of fearing them. Every invention followed the same philosophy. Nothing wasted, everything connected, every discovery shared. For thousands of years their civilization grew, not through conquest, but through understanding the one world they already possessed. Eventually their planet became something extraordinary. From orbit it resembled a living circuit. Billions of independent systems, homes, factories, laboratories, vehicles, machines, operated together as one immense planetary network. Power moved across continents as naturally as blood flows through a living body. Scarcity slowly disappeared, and civilization's oldest conflicts began losing their meaning. Fresh water, food, knowledge, innovation, all of it accelerated. Asterion entered an age unlike anything humanity has yet experienced.
Yet, as I have learned over billions of years, reaching one summit often reveals another mountain waiting beyond. And hidden beneath the capital city, Jack was about to discover the truth that transformed their greatest achievement into the beginning of a much larger journey.
Jack followed the glowing path beneath the ancient capital, descending deeper than any map aboard the ship had suggested. The walls around him were perfectly smooth, interrupted only by thin streams of blue light that pulsed like the heartbeat of the planet itself. The passage ended before a circular door nearly 100 meters wide. There were no handles, no controls, only a single symbol at its center, the same symbol that had appeared throughout the archive. As Jack stepped closer, the chamber awakened. Thousands of lights spread across the enormous doorway until the entire room glowed with soft white light. The door did not slide open. Instead, it unfolded into countless pieces, each moving silently as though gravity itself had become optional. Beyond it waited the greatest room Jack had ever seen. At its center floated a perfect hologram of Asterion, not a simple globe. A living planet, clouds moved across continents. Storms formed over distant oceans. Volcanoes glowed beneath mountain ranges. Auroras danced above the poles. Most astonishing of all, countless rivers of golden light flowed beneath the surface. Every one represented energy. Power stations, transmission networks, storage facilities, fusion reactors, orbital collectors, oceanic generators, geothermal wells. Every source of usable energy on the planet appeared together as one living system. Jack slowly walked around the enormous globe. Power moved automatically wherever demand increased. Cities entering daylight reduced stored reserves. Regions entering darkness received additional energy from orbital collectors. Storm systems generated electricity before making landfall.
Even volcanic activity became another carefully managed contributor. Nothing was random. Nothing was wasted. I have watched civilizations spend centuries fighting over resources that surrounded them all along. The people of Asterion learned something humanity is only beginning to understand.
Energy is not simply fuel. Energy is information. It tells you where life exists, where cities grow, where industries expand, where civilizations struggle, control the flow of energy, and you begin shaping the future itself. Jack noticed that the hologram responded to his movements. As he focused on one continent, the image expanded until individual cities became visible. Each city looked alive. Buildings changed their own energy usage throughout the day. Transportation networks redirected power automatically. Factories slowed production during peak demand. Homes stored surplus electricity for neighboring regions. Every decision happened without human intervention. Artificial intelligence coordinated billions of calculations every second, not to control its people, to serve them. The archive explained that their greatest invention had never been a machine. It had been cooperation. Every breakthrough remained available to every citizen. Every improvement spread across the planet within moments. Knowledge no longer belonged to corporations. It no longer belonged to governments. Knowledge belonged to civilization itself. That single decision accelerated progress beyond anything earlier generations thought possible. Within only a few centuries, diseases that had once terrified entire populations disappeared. Deserts bloomed with forests, ocean pollution vanished. Carbon that once warmed the atmosphere became raw material for new construction. Waste became a forgotten word. Everything became the beginning of something else. The archive called this the Age of Balance, when survival no longer dominated every decision. With abundant clean energy, their civilization asked entirely different questions. How can we understand consciousness? Can intelligence exist beyond biology? Can we protect our planet for millions of years instead of merely decades? Can we prepare for dangers arriving from space? The answers demanded even greater ambition. Gigantic observatories appeared beyond the atmosphere. Space elevators connected the surface with orbital habitats. Asteroid mining supplied rare materials, without damaging their own world. Factories drifted silently through orbit, constructing structures too immense to build under gravity. Jack watched centuries pass in only minutes. The civilization grew larger, smarter, more connected. Every generation inherited a better world than the one before. It seemed perfect. Yet something began troubling him. Every historical record ended abruptly. No celebrations marked their greatest achievement. No declaration announced the completion of their planetary transformation. Instead, a pattern emerged. The records became quieter. Construction slowed. Research changed direction. The civilization that once focused entirely upon improving its homeworld suddenly began looking outward, far beyond its own planet, far beyond its own star. The hologram zoomed outward. Asterion became a tiny sphere orbiting an ordinary sun. Around the star appeared countless new structures, orbital habitats, solar collectors, deep space observatories, exploration vessels. Jack realized the truth immediately.
Mastering an entire planet had not satisfied them. It had only revealed how small their world truly was. From within the hologram, a shape of pure light gathered itself into a presence. An artificial consciousness, the archive called simply the Guardian. Built to preserve Asterion's memory long after its people were gone. It spoke for the first time. We believed becoming a Type One civilization was the destination. We were wrong. It was only the first step.
Every answer uncovered 10 new questions. Every horizon revealed another beyond it. Every discovery made the universe appear even larger. Jack stared silently at the expanding hologram as it reached beyond the planetary system itself. The archive had stopped telling the story of a planet. It was beginning the story of a civilization preparing to leave home forever. The hologram continued expanding until Asterion became nothing more than a pale point of light orbiting an ordinary star. Around that star, hundreds of artificial structures slowly appeared. At first they looked insignificant. Tiny stations, research platforms, shipyards, communication arrays. But as Jack watched the centuries unfold, those scattered structures multiplied into an intricate web surrounding the entire system. Every new generation built a little farther from home. Every mission lasted a little longer. Every return brought discoveries that transformed the civilization below. I have seen this pattern countless times.
Every civilization that survives long enough eventually looks toward the stars and asks the same question. If our world is no longer enough, what lies beyond it? The first explorers traveled only to neighboring planets.
They searched for minerals, ice, rare elements, anything that could strengthen the civilization they had already built. Soon they discovered something even more valuable than resources: perspective. Looking back toward Asterion from millions of kilometers away changed how they saw themselves. Borders vanished. Nations disappeared. Arguments that once divided billions became invisible from space. There was only one world, one atmosphere, one fragile home suspended within an endless ocean of darkness. The archive called this moment the Second Awakening. The first awakening had united their planet through energy. The second united their civilization through perspective. Jack walked deeper into the chamber as new sections of the archive illuminated around him. Entire fleets of spacecraft appeared. None carried weapons. Every vessel had been designed for exploration, construction, or science. Some harvested asteroids. Others built enormous habitats rotating gently, to create artificial gravity. Many traveled far beyond the outer planets, carrying observatories powerful enough to study distant stars in extraordinary detail. Knowledge became their greatest export. Discovery became their greatest ambition. Their scientists soon realized that every star pouring light into the galaxy represented an almost unimaginable source of energy. Compared with a planet, a star was limitless. Their own sun produced more energy in a single second than their civilization could consume in many years. For thousands of years they had learned to capture what reached their planet. Now, they began wondering, how much more could be gathered before it ever escaped into space? That question inspired the largest engineering projects in their history. Immense solar collectors spread across millions of kilometers of orbit. Each generation expanded the network, not to block the star, not yet, only to collect a little more of the light that would otherwise disappear forever into the darkness. Jack smiled. Humanity had already imagined ideas remarkably similar: solar satellites, orbital power stations, space-based energy transmission. The difference was scale. Everything on Asterion eventually reached a scale almost impossible to comprehend. Factories larger than cities floated silently in orbit. Robotic construction fleets assembled structures continuously without pause. Artificial intelligence coordinated millions of machines spread across an entire solar system. No single mind could understand every detail anymore. Only the civilization as a whole could. Yet, despite all this progress, one mystery refused to disappear. The cities on Asterion slowly became quieter. Population growth stabilized. Construction shifted almost entirely into space. The surface of the planet transformed into something unexpected. Forests expanded. Rivers flowed freely again. Wildlife returned to places abandoned by industry thousands of years earlier. Jack finally understood why. They had stopped treating the planet as a place to exploit. They had become its caretakers. Heavy industry moved into orbit where sunlight was constant and raw materials arrived directly from asteroids. Their planet became something priceless. Not a factory, not a mine, a garden.
Perhaps every truly advanced civilization eventually learns the same lesson. The greatest measure of intelligence is not how much of nature you replace. It is how much of it you preserve. The archive identified this era as the golden balance.
For nearly 100,000 years, peace endured. No shortages, no ecological collapse, no planetary wars. Every prediction suggested they would continue advancing for millions of years. Then, without warning, the historical records changed. Scientific reports became urgent. Observatories detected something impossible. It was not approaching from another planet. It was not an invading civilization. It was not a comet. Far beyond the edge of their solar system, the universe itself appeared to be sending them a message, one that would force them to question everything they believed about their future. Jack looked toward the final unopened archive crystal. For the first time since arriving on Asterion, he hesitated before reaching for it.
Even I, who have watched billions of years pass, remember what that crystal revealed. Some discoveries change civilizations. Others change how civilizations understand the universe itself. Jack reached toward the final crystal.
For a brief moment, nothing happened. Then the chamber disappeared. The floor beneath his feet dissolved into darkness until only countless stars surrounded him. He was no longer standing inside the archive. He was witnessing one of its memories. Asterion floated peacefully below. Its continents shimmered beneath ribbons of golden light as orbital collectors traced brilliant circles around the planet. Everything appeared perfect. Then the stars began changing. One by one, distant suns dimmed. Not because they were dying, not because clouds blocked their light. Something enormous was passing between the observers and the galaxy beyond. The astronomers noticed it first. Their telescopes detected a region of space where thousands of stars were becoming strangely invisible. The pattern expanded every year. At first, they blamed faulty instruments. Then they blamed interstellar dust. Finally, they accepted the possibility no scientist wanted to believe. Something was moving, not a ship, not a planet, not even a star. Something vastly larger. Across the observatories of Asterion, every telescope turned toward the same distant region. The measurements all agreed. The object stretched across light years. It traveled silently between the stars, impossible to see directly, revealing itself only by the light it blocked. Panic never reached the public. Instead, the Scientific Council began the greatest investigation in their history. For nearly 2 centuries, they gathered evidence. Every observatory, every satellite, every deep space probe, every artificial intelligence contributed to solving the mystery. Their conclusion was astonishing. The object was natural, yet nothing like it had ever been observed before. A vast molecular cloud, denser than expected, carrying enormous concentrations of gas, dust, and magnetic fields, drifted slowly through the galaxy. By itself it was harmless, but hidden within it were thousands of unstable stellar nurseries preparing to ignite over millions of years. The cloud was not a threat. It was a reminder. The universe was still changing. Stars were still being born. Galaxies were still evolving. Even a civilization that had mastered an entire planet remained insignificant beside cosmic time. The discovery changed everything. For thousands of years, the people of Asterion had believed their greatest responsibility was protecting their world. Now they understood that worlds themselves were temporary. Stars age, planets cool, galaxies collide. Nothing remains unchanged forever. The archive called this realization the Third Awakening. The first awakening had taught them to master energy. The second had united their civilization beyond borders. The third taught them humility. Jack watched as new construction projects appeared across the solar system. Not cities, not factories. Observatories. Gigantic instruments spread across millions of kilometers. Some used gravitational lenses created by their own star. Others floated in deep space, where nothing disturbed their measurements. They no longer searched only for resources. They searched for understanding. Every answer revealed another mystery waiting beyond it. They mapped black holes, measured the slow dance of neighboring stars, tracked rogue planets wandering through interstellar darkness, recorded the birth of distant suns, watched ancient galaxies whose light had traveled for billions of years before reaching their instruments. Knowledge expanded faster than their civilization itself. Then another discovery arrived. This one carried no uncertainty, no competing theories, no room for debate. Their galaxy was changing faster than anyone had predicted. Neighboring stars drifted through space with subtle but measurable precision. Gravitational simulations all pointed toward the same inevitable future. Billions of years from now, another galaxy would collide with their own. Nothing could prevent it. No technology could stop it. Entire constellations would slowly rearrange across the heavens. Most stars would never collide. Yet the appearance of the night sky would transform forever. Jack smiled quietly. Human astronomers had reached the same conclusion. One day, the Milky Way and Andromeda will merge into a single, larger galaxy. Some truths remain universal. No matter how advanced a civilization becomes, it cannot command the universe itself. It can only learn to understand it. The Guardian's voice returned once more. We believed power would answer every question. Instead, it gave us the ability to ask better ones. And that, perhaps, was the greatest achievement of all. The chamber began changing again. A new doorway emerged from the darkness beyond the hologram. Unlike every passage before it, this one carried no lights, only silence. Jack stepped forward cautiously. Beyond that threshold waited records that had never been shown to the citizens of Asterion. The classified history. The story of why a civilization capable of mastering an entire planet eventually abandoned it forever. The passage beyond the hidden doorway felt different. Until now, every chamber had celebrated discovery. This one carried the weight of difficult decisions. The walls no longer displayed triumphs. Instead, they showed timelines. Millions of years stretched across glowing maps, each one predicting countless possible futures. Jack walked slowly between them. Every projection began the same way. Asterion prospered. Knowledge expanded. Technology advanced. Their civilization reached heights earlier generations could scarcely imagine. Then the paths diverged. Some futures ended with ecological collapse.
Others with political division. A few with catastrophic accidents involving technologies too powerful to fail. Yet none of those futures had become reality. One after another, they had been avoided. Not through luck, through preparation. I have watched civilizations disappear because they planned only for tomorrow.
The wisest among them began planning for the next million years. The people of Asterion had reached that point. They no longer measured success by elections, economies, or even centuries. They measured it by geological ages. The archive revealed an extraordinary institution known simply as the Continuum. Its members served no government. They commanded no armies. Their only responsibility was protecting the civilization against threats that unfolded over thousands, millions, and even billions of years. They studied everything: asteroid impacts, supervolcanoes, climate cycles, nearby supernovae, gamma-ray bursts, changes in their star, the slow evolution of life itself. Nothing was considered too unlikely if enough time existed for it to happen. Jack stopped before a projection showing their home star. It looked peaceful, bright, stable, almost identical to the sun humanity knows today. Then, time accelerated. Millions of years passed in seconds. The star slowly brightened. Its energy increased almost imperceptibly. At first, the changes seemed harmless. Then, oceans began shrinking. Cloud patterns shifted. Temperatures climbed. The archive highlighted a simple truth. Stars do not remain constant forever. Even long before a star becomes a red giant, its increasing brightness slowly transforms the planets around it. The calculations were unmistakable. One day, Asterion would become too warm to support the civilization that had flourished there for hundreds of thousands of years. Not next century, not next millennium, but inevitably. No technology could persuade a star to stop aging. For the first time, Jack understood why so much construction had moved into space. It was never only about efficiency. It was preparation. The Guardian appeared beside the hologram once more. Our ancestors believed becoming a Type 1 civilization meant mastering a planet. The room shifted again. Entire fleets appeared around their star. Not warships, but arcs. Colossal habitats capable of supporting millions of people. Rotating worlds built from metal, ice, and stone, gathered throughout the solar system, each designed to function independently for thousands of years. Not because their world had failed, because one world was no longer enough. The archive called this era the Great Expansion. Some grew up beneath artificial skies inside orbital habitats. Others lived within hollowed asteroids transformed into thriving cities. Distance gradually lost its meaning. The solar system itself became their homeland. Jack noticed something remarkable. Despite spreading across millions of kilometers, they still spoke of Asterion with deep affection. The planet remained sacred. It became a place of history, of learning, of remembrance. Not because they needed to live there forever, but because it was where they had learned who they were. Perhaps every civilization carries such a place. A single world where everything began. The archive then displayed a message recorded by one of the earliest Continuum scholars. Do not fear leaving your cradle. Fear believing your cradle is the entire universe. Jack read the words twice. They sounded less like advice, more like a warning left for every young civilization that would someday follow the same path. As the message faded, another projection appeared. This one showed hundreds of nearby stars. Several already hosted distant research stations. Exploration vessels traveled continuously between them. The civilization had solved the challenge of mastering one planet, then one solar system. Now, for the first time, they were preparing to cross the immense darkness between the stars.
Jack looked toward time. Even without speaking, he understood. The story was no longer about becoming a Kardashev Type One civilization. It was about what comes after you succeed. Jack stood before the expanding star map in complete silence.
Just hours earlier, he had believed the civilization of Asterion had reached the pinnacle of technological achievement. Now he realized they considered themselves beginners. The projection stretched farther outward. 1 star, 10 stars, 100, thousands? Thousands? Every point of light represented another sun capable of warming worlds, nurturing life, and pouring unimaginable amounts of energy into empty space every second. The Guardian spoke again. When we became a Type 1 civilization, we believed we had conquered power. The universe answered by showing us how little power we truly possessed. The display compared their civilization with their own star. Every city, every orbital habitat, every fusion reactor, every spacecraft. Combined together, they consumed only a tiny fraction of the energy their star released each moment. The numbers were almost impossible to comprehend. Their greatest achievement was still insignificant beside a single ordinary star. Jack looked upward. The chamber ceiling slowly vanished, revealing the real sky above Asterion. Thousands of stars filled the darkness, each one another's sun, each one producing extraordinary amounts of energy. The realization struck him immediately. If one planet had transformed their civilization, what could one entire star make possible?
Time had watched countless civilizations ask exactly that question. Some never found the answer. Some destroyed themselves before reaching it. A rare few survived long enough to try. The archive shifted again.
Engineers proposed structures so vast they surrounded portions of their star. Not solid shells, but billions of independent solar collectors orbiting in coordinated paths. Each collector harvested a tiny fraction of stellar energy. Together, they captured more power than any planet ever could. Human scientists once imagined a similar concept. They called it a Dyson swarm. The people of Asterion arrived at the same idea through centuries of observation and engineering. They understood that stars waste almost all of their energy. Light radiates endlessly into empty space whether anyone uses it or not. To them, allowing such energy to escape seemed as strange as allowing rivers to flow into deserts, while cities nearby thirsted. Construction began cautiously. First came collectors no larger than satellites, then platforms the size of cities, then factories built only to manufacture more collectors. Not rapidly, patiently. No civilization reaches greatness overnight. Progress came through millions of small improvements repeated over centuries. Jack watched time accelerate. Thousands of years passed. The swarm slowly thickened around the star. Its brightness remained almost unchanged from nearby planets, yet sophisticated instruments measured a growing percentage of stellar energy being captured. The Guardian smiled. Many civilizations dream of impossible machines. The successful ones begin with possible machines. That single sentence explained almost everything Jack had witnessed. There had never been one miraculous invention. There had been millions. Each solved one small problem. Together, they changed an entire civilization. The archive briefly returned to Earth. Humanity. Solar farms, fusion experiments, reusable rockets, orbital telescopes, artificial intelligence. None of these alone would create a Type 1 civilization, but together they formed the first stones on the same road Asterion once traveled. Jack suddenly felt hopeful. Perhaps humanity was not as far behind as it sometimes believed. The difference was not intelligence. The difference was time. Every civilization receives the same opportunity. Whether it succeeds depends upon the choices it makes before reaching the next great crossroads. The chamber lights dimmed once more. A new warning appeared across the archive. It contained only a single sentence. Every civilization powerful enough to harvest the energy of a star eventually attracts attention. Jack frowned. Attention from whom? Even time remained silent. Some answers deserved anticipation before explanation.